I guess I'll unmute myself and just see if you guys can hear me. If you can hear me, can you put a comment in the chat box and say yes? That would be appreciated. This is actually the first time I've ever done a webinar. I've used Zoom for one-on-ones. Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah, I had to unmute myself. So I know we're a little bit early. There's a few of you here that are early birds, I guess, like me, that have shown up. I just wanted to make, I know when I've gone to webinars and I go there and I'm trying to time it in. So it's kind of interesting too. So anyway, does anyone have any questions right now before we get started? You could pop them in the chat box and I can answer them. This is weird because I'm used to using Zoom meetings and I can see the participant, I can hear the participant, because that's when I'm doing like small group, like a husband and wife, or when I'm doing the one-on-one. So anyway, this is going to be a new experience for me. So I really appreciate you guys being my guinea pig. So no questions? Do you guys want to tell me where you're from? Just looking at the time here. Okay, yeah, we're 8 minutes out still, so. Got to tickle my throat. This is gonna be fun. Oh, Windsor. Okay, okay. I'm in Langley, British Columbia. So it's in Windsor, it's a little bit later in the day there. That was. How many kids and how old are your children? My children, my son is 33 and my daughter will be 23 at the end of the month. No, the webinar is 1 Pacific Standard Time. So we're 12:53 so far. Yeah, so Windsor, now are you coming up to now 4 in the afternoon there? Yeah, the time change. I've had some really fun challenges when I've been teaching classes. The farthest in Canada I've done is Newfoundland, and that was fun figuring out time. Okay, yeah, I thought I did on the invitation that I put PST time. So in the future, I'll make sure. Yeah, 3:54. Yeah. You guys are going to be hungry. I hope you had a little snack. Also, you guys are probably going to want to take some notes. There is actually a lot of information. And so you may want to you may want to take some notes. So if you haven't got a pen and paper, maybe take a couple of minutes and run and grab yourself a pen and paper to take some notes, because there is a lot of information in this course. This course was originally designed by Dr. Jane A. Major in Santa Monica, California. So, and she had recommended it be 10 classes at 2 to 3 hours each. And I found that there was no way when I was doing group live classes that people would sign up for 10 classes. So I crunched all the material into 8. So it makes it pretty intense. So, okay, so we are at, so we got 5 minutes, and then we'll get started. And people come later, then they can join in. So again, did anybody want to share with how old their children are? Oh, preschool. Oh, that can be fun. I liked preschool. Oh, 23. I got a 23-year-old, 2017. So what challenges do you find with having older children? Okay. Well, I think this is going to be a little bit more manageable. I see there's, yes, in some ways, yes. Yeah, parenting was different back then. I know with my 33-year-old son, parenting him was a lot different until I made the shift with this. I've worked with a lot of South Asian families, and they actually wanted me, they said, you know, we should get you to come and do some group classes with the South Asians, because their children, their parenting styles versus how parents were with their parenting styles is different. Yeah, you can only hear me. I can't see you guys or hear you guys. So the only way you guys can like communicate with me is through chat. I know I missed that two-way that you get in a Zoom meeting, but there was, I'm not sure how many people will show up, but 63 people registered. I see we're at 10 now, and we got a couple more. So it's either a bunch of people will be coming at the last minute, or a bunch of people decided they couldn't make it. I've been teaching this course since 2009. So I've amalgamated a lot of the stuff from the Breakthrough Parenting course that I took, working with counselors, working with social workers, because I had quite a situation on my hands. I actually went through a 6.5-year custody battle with my daughter's dad. And that almost bankrupted me, but that made some different parenting challenges too. Oh, so you think people might think, oh, they think, oh, yeah, well, no, I'm doing this so that, because I can't do live classes and because of the COVID-19, people may still be working, yes. Here in BC, there's a lot of people home. So, but we seem to have done a pretty good job of flattening the curve here. So hopefully, hopefully this will be over soon. I'm hoping. Anyway, so we are at 1 o'clock. I am going to get started, like I say. Yes, BC, well, not so much lockdown, but we're only allowed to go out basically for groceries, get prescriptions, and yeah, they've closed all the parks because people wouldn't behave, and they've asked us not to go to the smaller communities because if we brought the COVID-19 there, we could be overwhelming their resources, which makes just essentials. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's myself being older, I've seen a lot of different things, but I think about our children, and my daughter going to be being 23 at the end of the month and having to deal with this kind of stuff. I'm just going, that's rough thing I think for young people. But anyway, so yeah, I'll share my screen here. There we go. Hang on here. What's happening here? Bring this over. Can you see my screen? Okay, good, good. So I want to congratulate you guys for coming here and investing your time. Obviously not your money, because I'm doing this for free. It's my gift. I mean, there's parents stuck at home and kids stuck at home, and parenting can be a bit of a challenge. But I've always wanted to record this course. Of course, my other two businesses are somewhat quiet, so this has given me an opportunity to finally record the course, and I figured if I'm going to record it, I may as well invite people to come on and participate, learn about it, and share the knowledge. So okay, come on. So this is a course that will give you some knowledge and tools and insights to help you strengthen your relationship with your children, because that's really what we all want. We want strong relationships with our children, and we also want to have lots of skills and tools so that we can help our children reach their full potential. So this is, like I said, lesson 1 of 8. And in this one, we're going to be learning about the 3 different parenting styles. We're going to talk about discipline versus punishment. We're going to talk about inner direction versus outer direction. Helping our children develop responsibility. The difference and advantage of using influence versus control of our children, and teaching our children to respect personal boundaries. Is that something that you guys think is going to be valuable? So there's three types of parenting. There's permissive parenting, there's authoritarian parenting, and authoritative parenting. So, and do not confuse authoritarian and authoritative parenting. Those are two very, very, very different parenting styles. So permissive parenting is a type of parenting style characterized with low demands with your children. A parent using permissive parenting, the children are allowed to go without a lot of direction. Parents sort of expect children to learn from their mistakes. They'll figure it out. And many of us probably know of parents that use that style. But you want to think about, why would this not be very effective? And part of it is it can take too long to learn the skills. Children are not normally self-directing, so they will get stuck in something if something is giving them lots of pleasure at the moment. Why would they stop to do what we would think of as the right thing? An example would be, okay, they know they have to get up early in the morning, so they really should go to bed early, but they're having so much fun playing with their Lego or their Play-Doh or whatever, that they would just keep going and going and going. A parent may make a suggestion, don't you think you should go to bed? And of course the child is just gonna brush it up. So you think about it, children need routines. They need structure. They need predictability and boundaries. And let's face it, they don't come by those things naturally. So that's where we come in to guide them. So authoritarian parenting, you think about, do this, don't do that. It's probably one of the oldest and most widely used parenting styles. And this is where parents, they assume the majority of the control over their parents, and they use their authority, they use threats, they use intimidations to get the children to conform to their will. Children can become passive resistant to this. There's some very negative reactions to this, and there's a lot of fear. So then if we go to positive proactive parenting, which is an authoritative type of parenting, this is where you're neither permissive nor authoritarian. This is more where you act as your child's guide, steward, mentor. You're not their friend, but you're not someone that uses fear and intimidation to get them to do what you believe that they should do. And you actually do still allow them to make some mistakes. So, but not as much as like a permissive parenting. Is this making some sense to you guys? Are you sort of seeing a little bit of the differences between the parenting styles? So let's continue on. So an authoritative parent allows the child some of the responsibility for solving their problem. So you share in the problem solving with it. And if they're sharing in the problem solving, can you think about, they're more likely going to have more buy-in if they've been able to contribute to the solution. Then they're more likely to say, okay, I'm going to give this plan a try. I'm hoping that makes sense. So, wanting to talk about the difference between discipline and punishment. This is something that when I first did this course way back, I found I actually was using a lot of punishment. Discipline is harder to do. But discipline is to teach by showing your children how to assume responsibility. Punishment, you control by causing psychological or physical pain. So I just want you to take a little bit of time and think about, did your parents use discipline or punishment with you? If you think of a situation, and did they make you feel bad, uncomfortable, fearful, hurt you psychologically or physically when you did something? Or have you done that to your children? Or were your parents the type to discipline? Do you discipline? Do you punish? Do you do a combination of both? I just want you to, start thinking about those two different concepts, because that's, if you start disciplining your child as opposed to punishing, you're going to see a whole shift in their behavior, and you'll actually start to see a shift in their self-esteem and feelings of self-worth and their self-confidence. As this course progresses, we'll get more and more into how punishment actually can do such damage to our children, lead them into being followers, and not making their own decisions. Whereas discipline, it will help your children become more independent and making their own decisions. But we will build on that. So I just want you to focus, first of all, on these two concepts of discipline and punishment. And as you're going through over the next week, before you come back, think about when you're having an interaction with your child and you have to correct them about something. Did you discipline or did you punish? Because, like I say, punishment can lead to resentment, revenge, passive-aggressive behavior. It can halt creativity and the ability in your children to solve problems independently. It does not contribute to producing a psychologically healthy child. So we want to make a shift and think about, we want to move from parenting from fear, where we make our children afraid of us or afraid of doing the wrong thing, to that we're parenting out of love, which is discipline. And again, this is something, as we're building, this is going to be making more and more sense as we go along. We all say we love our children unconditionally, and I was a big proponent of saying that. But you don't understand how sometimes you inadvertently attach conditions to your love for your child. And as we go through, you're going to see, and you're going to become more aware how you've accidentally or insidiously attached conditions to your love and you didn't even know it, you had no intention to do it. But one of these things is once we start to become more aware that we may be doing that, then we are better able to stop doing it. I touched on early about inner directed and outer directed, and we're going to get into that much more and in much more detail, but and self-esteem. And so that's what I'm saying. When you punish, the child looks for their sense of self-worth outer. So that makes them more susceptible to peer pressure. But if we use discipline, then they start developing an internal sense of self-worth because they're developing critical thinking skills. When you're using punishment, children don't really need to develop personal boundaries because you're telling them when they're doing wrong all the time. So they're not having to develop those internal controls. But if you're using discipline, you're developing their critical thinking skills, and they start not only respecting personal boundaries, but figuring out where they are. When you're parenting from a place of fear and punishment, people seem to resist change because they think that if I change my behavior because you pressured me or threatened and intimidated me, then I'm going to be able to you're going to keep doing that. And I don't want you to be treating me like that. So that's where that passive aggressive behavior comes. But if we discipline our children, they develop a more positive self-esteem, and they're much more comfortable about embracing change. No longer having to blame others, and they can take responsibility for their mistakes because we will be teaching our children that making a mistake is part of the learning process. We'll take people from moralism to having compassion. We'll make that shift from black and white thinking to learning to live with some ambiguity, like right or wrong, this or that. And the world isn't always like that. Stopping focusing on the past or looking at the future and living in the present, because that is what we have. And I think we're all being forced in this situation to be living in the present. When you're going from fear and punishment, there gets to be a defensiveness. But if it's from discipline and love, people are more accepting of feedback. We've moved away from sharing, and we're showing understanding. So when parents view their children in a more positive way, the children are more likely to see themselves as important, worthy, and good people. This helps children become, like I was saying, inner directed. Authoritarian parenting uses punishment, which creates children which are outer directed. There is a threat or use of either psychological or physical punishment, and fear is that natural result. I'm hoping I'm making sense to you guys. When we're operating with children in a fear state, they're on the edge, they're anxious, they're out of balance, which makes it hard to be creative, right? Punishment is a powerful tool for creating control over others, because it creates fear. And children are afraid of their parents then. And the parents have incredible power over them. But the only incentive for doing good is if the parent is standing over their shoulder or likely to catch them doing wrong. It's not the inner directed, it's outer directed. They're watching. Like, is something going to happen? And so that's what I'm saying, that's that outer control. That's what I'm trying to get a shift made from where you go from raising children that are outer directed to inner directed. And I hope that I will continue to build onto that so that you will get a really good handle on that, because when you have children that have inner control, you're really empowering them and to start becoming who they really are truly meant to be. Now, also, many of us determine our own self-worth based on others' opinions of ourselves. And it's, if you're outer directed, it's going to be much harder for you to teach your children to be inner directed if you haven't made that own personal growth yet. And we'll cover a lot of that in lesson 3, which is on how to build and maintain a healthy self-esteem. And I found a lot of my parents that have taken this course have had very low self-esteem and have had to build theirs. And I've really watched a lot of them bloom and become much more confident as they've made that shift. When I originally took this course, actually, I didn't realize it, but my self-esteem was really low, and that I was outer directed. So as I made that shift, I just was much more confident to do a lot of things. Like if I was not inner directed, I would not be able to do this. And just because you're inner directed doesn't mean you don't battle that, wondering what other people are thinking. Like, I'm worried about if you guys are also getting value from this and if you're judging me, but also I have to give myself a little pep talk and I go, this is powerful information that helped me make a shift in myself personally, in my own personal growth. I've seen the difference that it made in my daughter in the last 12 years. And I've seen the change in so many of my parents. When I think of parents that I had in 2009 and 2010, and when they communicate back to me what's happening with their children and their relationships, I'm going, that's helping me. So just because you're primarily inner directed doesn't mean you're not going to be having those moments of outer directed, but learning how to be inner directed is really the goal. And I really need you as parents to learn to be inner directed so you can lead your children to becoming like that. I hope that's making sense to you. So you think about it, we don't want our approval or our children's approval coming from out here. And it can come from as simple as little saying of catching yourself when you say, I'm proud of you. Like they bend down and and that is teaching your children to be outer directed because they're looking for your approval. Just making a little switch of when a child, say, ties their shoes or they do a particularly good job on a picture or something and go, you must be proud of yourself. And that will start making a shift. So I hope that's a takeaway that you will take away today too, is, and if you can be specific with your compliments, it gives it even more value to your child, because it's real, it's genuine. So we develop the confidence that we need, and our children will develop the confidence that they need to be fully responsible for their choices when their self-worth is internally based, which is what we're calling inner directed. So you think about it, initially the parents is where their children are getting their approval, and that's great, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it when they're very little and they're learning, because they're you think about it, and your children do something and how often they're looking to you, because they're looking for their sense of self. They're looking to find their place in the world. So you want to teach them to feel that they are worthy. So you want to help them believe that they are worthy. So when you're moving forward and you're viewing your children in a positive way, they're likely to see themselves as good. And so like an example would be, oh, I had it and then I lost it. You're so lazy. That's a very negative label, and children will grow into these labels. How about say, maybe they're not lazy, maybe it's that they were distracted. Finding different words, but try not to use negative labels with your children, because that's going to affect their self-esteem. Like, you're like, this one's used a lot with girls. Oh, you're so stubborn. How about, you're very determined. So words are powerful. So if you can take a little bit of time and think about your words that you're using with your child, that's going to help their self-esteem. That's going to make it easier for them to accept discipline from you, which is teaching. Because that's really what you want to do, is you want to teach them how to change their behavior into a positive way, so they get positive outcomes to their decisions rather than negative outcomes. So to reiterate, authoritarian parenting uses punishment, which creates children which are outer directed. The punishment could be psychological or it could be physical. And psychological punishment can often hurt more than physical. If you think back to some of the things your parents may have said to you that may have hurt, or a friend has said to you, you know, we want to think about that. Think about how powerful words are, and how hurtful words are, or how uplifting words can be. There's a lot of times that parents will say things to their children or treat their children in a way that they wouldn't treat a coworker. but they seem to believe it's okay to treat the child like that. But that punishment, what is the natural result of that? Fear. We use punishment because learning to discipline is much more difficult. It takes a lot more thought. We have to be more level-tempered. We often punishment when we're angry or we're agitated. So we want to move away from that. So remember, using punishment will put your kids, they'll be anxious, on edge, and out of balance. And think about yourself, if you're anxious, you're on edge, you're out of balance, you don't have the critical thinking skills that you would have if you were in a balance. So I want to touch on here about polarized thinking, because a lot of people get stuck in that thinking black and white, right or wrong, true or false, them or us. And in one of the later classes, we'll go through the part of this called stages of love, but it's sort of like the stages of development, and how as you're going through, you start to leave that black and white and start allowing shades of gray until things can become multifaceted, and you can have a lot more compassion and understanding because you've moved away from that black and white thinking. And when children go through these different developmental stages, unfortunately, and we're going to go through that in a later class. Unfortunately, some adults get stuck at the different levels. And one of the things I found really interesting, that when you get to that part and you see what those different levels are, you can actually literally look at friends and family members, and you can say they're stuck at that level, or they're stuck at that level. And it actually, when we cover those different levels, you'll see that because when they're stuck at that level, they only have a certain level of reasoning abilities. So you can't expect them to understand because they haven't grown. So they don't understand that concept. Like, you can't, someone that's stuck in black and white that doesn't understand shades of gray, if you're trying to explain shades of gray to them, they're not going to get it. But if you can identify that that person is stuck in the black and white, you're not going to frustrate yourself by trying to explain the shades of gray with expecting them to understand. You're going to talk in the black and white, excuse me, and help them develop the shades of gray. And that's what you want to do with your children. And it takes away a lot of your frustration. And also, it's going to take away a lot of your frustration with your children, because if you know that little 2 to 4 year old or whatever is going to be stuck in the people pleaser phase, which a lot of people like that. But when you find out what the negative is of that, then you're going to help guide your children to move out of that people pleaser the stage, because you want to help guide your child to develop emotionally as far as they possibly can go. And it's going to give them the opportunity to self-actualize and be more confident in reaching their goals and making decisions. This is when I read this section in the course the first time, I was blown away because I didn't realize that I was actually stuck in the victim syndrome. I was going through a 6.5-year custody battle with my daughter's dad, and I felt very, very helpless. All the stuff that he was doing. But once I was able to move away from the victim thinking, I took so much of my power back. It was unbelievable, the transformation. He actually had me being fearful. And when I moved out of that and I reclaimed my power, I was no longer afraid of him. So it's so wonderful to get out of that victim syndrome. Now you will, as we're talking about this, you will identify people that you know that are stuck in the victim syndrome, and you'll see how this will affect your relationship. Now, children automatically deflect personal responsibility for their actions on someone or something else naturally. So if you say, who did that? They're going to say, I don't know. And that's going to drive you nuts. Because you know it was them. Like, who broke the lamp? I did. You're thinking they're going to say, well, I did. I'm sorry. But they actually don't really connect what they did, their action, with the resulting consequence of it when they're young and starting out. But this is where you're going to be teaching them to be accountable so that they don't deflect the blame, because you don't want them to get stuck there and not accepting responsibility for their behavior. And there are adults stuck here. And you're gonna, when you start thinking about the different people in your life, you will start recognizing some that are. So if you don't teach your children how to take responsibility, and you think of teens that you read about in the paper, and I actually watch a lot of the court shows, and there's adults on there, and it's frustrating sometimes because you just can't see how some of these people just can't see how their behavior caused the action, or that they are responsible. It's somebody else or something else is to blame, which is like frustrating. So, like I said, your children are naturally in that stage. So recognize it so that you don't get frustrated, because if you walk in and they were bouncing a ball in the living room and it broke a lamp, and you go in there and you say, who broke that? Or and they say, I don't know, or what, how did you break that? I don't know. You may get all frustrated and move into punishment. You're going to get angry, and then you're going to have that fear situation. But if you realize your child at the early level of development, that's where they are. Excuse me. Then you're going to come to it from a whole different approach. You're going to realize that you need to use discipline and you need to teach, and you're going to be teaching them how to take the responsibility, and and you're going to realize that it's going to take some time. So I hope that concept is going to help you if you have, like some of you have preschoolers. This is going to be really beneficial for you. Now, those of you that have older children that might still be deflecting blame, this might be a little bit harder for you to go through, but you just understand it. You need to guide them through that concept and teach them how to start taking responsibility. And if you've moved away from punishment, but using punishment makes them want to deflect the blame because they're not taking responsibility because they're afraid of punishment, because they're afraid of the psychological or physical pain. But if you use discipline, then it becomes easier for them to start learning to take responsibility because there isn't the threat of physical or psychological pain. I hope that explained that well for you, and that makes sense, and that helps you, because you don't want your children to get stuck in that spot. There are adults that get stuck there, and you think about a lot of the criminals that are stuck there, people that are pathological liars and get stuck in that situation. So when you think about it, so there's the victim. So the victim, in the victim syndrome, they make a flawed judgment, or they do something and it goes wrong, and they don't want to take responsibility for it. They're not willing to take responsibility for it. And that just can be extremely frustrating. So in the scenario, and just think about some people that then we have rescuers. And I know I've had friends that have had friends that are stuck in the victim, and they rescue them. And you'll see a lot of these people on the Dr. Phil show if you watch it, where parents have these kids that are drug addicts, and they're stuck home, or they're not working, and the parents are actually letting them live home rent free, giving them money for drugs, because they don't want them out stealing or whatever. Because I mean, this is when the victim syndrome goes really, really bad for a really long length of time. But so you have these parents or friends that become the rescuers, and what they do is they continue to help these people. And by continuing to help these people, they are not making the victim take responsibility for their flawed judgments or decisions. Does that make sense? So, but a lot of times I think these rescuers do it. One, they don't know what else to do. Sometimes a lot of rescuers do it because it makes them feel better. But they don't know what to do, and they don't know how to help the person shift and leave the victim syndrome. But remember, we touched on that. The discipline will help. So often, a rescuer gets fed up and gives up and says, that's it. I've done this over and over and over again. I've given you the same advice over and over and over and over again, and you're not making any changes. So I'm not going to do it anymore. So now the victim is like going, wow, I won't use the words that the victim would probably use. So the victim starts looking at that person as their persecutor, because the victims don't want to admit that they've done anything wrong or make any effort to changing their situation. Victims like to get away with their irresponsible behavior again and again. They don't want to make any changes. It's hard for them to make changes. But they will move on and they will find other rescuers. So now that we finished with the victim syndrome, and you can think about people that you have known with that, and you can relate that depending on the age of your children to see if your children are there, or if they've moved out of that, or if you need help with moving them out of there. Then we can say, okay, they're not there anymore, or we've got the tools that we need to move them out of there. But one of the things I found very, very, very powerful in this is the power of positive thinking. Very difficult in this kind of situation, but all the more important. And I love this. And this is what Henry Ford said. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Like I've wanted to do this webinar for 6 years. And I would keep getting close, and then I would make excuses not. I'd have that battle with my self-esteem, the outer directed. What will people think? Will it be any good? Will I bore a bunch of people? So that back and forth. So what I had to do is I had to really work hard, and I found lots of excuses not to do it. My branded apparel and promotional products business really, really, really grew. Then 6 years ago, just when I was really going to start doing this, 6 years ago, the opportunity came for me to become the official supplier for Orange Shirt Day. So that was great. That kept me extremely busy, and it was it's been financially very rewarding. So, okay, now comes this COVID-19. I've wanted to do this for so many years. The promotional product and branded apparel business is not all that busy. Orange Shirt Day is not really all that busy. My assistants can take care of all of this. So it's like, okay, Patricia, you've been pushing this off for 6 years. You got to do it. It's time to do it. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So I just kept going. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. Doesn't mean I don't have butterflies. Doesn't mean I'm wondering what you guys are thinking about all this. For me, the challenge will be that I'm doing it, that I overcame my fear, I overcame my procrastination, and I'm actually quite proud of myself for not canceling and for doing this. So that's that inner direction. But I'm having the battle between the inner direction of being proud of myself for doing this and the outer direction going, what are they thinking? What are they thinking? What are they thinking? So, and this is something you're going to be having, right? And your children are going to be having that battle between them being inner directed and outer directed, and you're going to help them be inner directed. So positive thinking is an art form, and it takes practice. And here I am. I've been teaching this course for a long time, and you can see I've still been practicing. At least I have the tools and the skills to know, the insight to see what I was doing so that I could force myself to overcome my fear. So we did mention at the beginning, controlling children versus influencing them. Now, a lot of these concepts we'll cover, and just once we cover them, you go, oh, that's common sense. I know I've had a lot of men say, this is common sense, but I've never had it put to me this way. And I go, yeah, exactly. Once it's like, it's not rocket science, but I wish someone had told me this a long time ago. So if you think of your role with your child to be their steward, their mentor, their guide in life, their advisor, so that you can help them learn how to do it, and that you're their cheering squad rather than controlling, because controlling stems from that authoritarian parenting, which is controlling, which is outer directed, which has that fear. Are you seeing this reoccurring theme now? So, but the influence of children comes from the love, which comes from the discipline, which comes from the inner direction, which helps them be building a positive self-esteem. So when you think about, back and forth, you go, of course I want to be influencing my children and teaching them to be inner directed, and I want to be disciplining them, don't want to be doing all that. So now that you know these things, hopefully you are closer now to being able to be aware of it and then making the shift. And this is going to take practice. You will, if you're a type of parent that controls your child, you're gonna slip often with this, and that's understandable. Just say to your kid, okay, your children, oh, say I'm learning some new skills and insight. Sorry, let me rewind. I would say that to my children. Let me rewind. Ignore that. Take an eraser. Forget that all. Let's rewind. I want to come back and do this from a different angle, a different direction. Your kids will appreciate it, and they will admire and respect you, because one, you've also reinforced with them that making mistakes is part of learning. So you're teaching them that making mistakes is not the end all be all, that it's just part of learning, which we're going to cover that in more detail down the road too. But think about, do you want someone controlling you, and how do you respond if someone tries to control you? Some people become passive aggressive. Sometimes, like if you're controlling your child to make them do it, they will do it, the fear, or they'll stubbornly defy you, and they won't let you, and you'll have a rip roaring fight. And I've thought about that, and I've said to my parents, I've said to them, if I was controlling my child, do I want a child that is going to fight me on it? Or do I want a child that's just going to cave and do it when I'm controlling them? And I went, you know what? I want that child that's going to fight me. Because they still have a belief that they're entitled to their own thoughts and feelings and having their needs met, rather than subverting them to someone else's wishes. I'm hoping that makes sense. A lot of parents think, okay, that's so good. My child does everything that I tell them to do. They're perfectly behaved. What sacrifices to that child's identity have they had to give up to conform to your will? How much fear of physical or psychological pain did they have so that they complied? Scary concept, isn't it? Nobody wants their kid to defy them. So you want to move towards influencing them, which again, influencing your children is a lot more work than controlling. You think too, when you're controlling the child, they're only going to do what you want when they think you're going to know. But influencing to do the right thing, they're going to do it because it feels right. It feels good to them. So this is where they start to learn self-discipline. And your children start self-determination. How do you raise a child to become an independent thinker with good problem-solving skills, which we're going to cover, and conflict resolution skills, which we're going to cover? If we're controlling them and telling them to do what we want them to do, where is the area for them to develop critical thinking skills? They don't have a need because we're telling them what to do. And if they don't do what we tell them what to do, they'll be punished. Like when I started off in the beginning and I was talking about the unconditional and the conditional love, sometimes we put that little hook on, I'll love you if you please me. Oh, if you empty the dishwasher, I'm going to be so happy. Well, that's true. And you may say that anyway, because you will be so happy if they empty the dishwasher. But that there is that condition on it. Doesn't mean you can't always do that, but you can't do that once in a while, but you don't always want to do that. You don't always want to put a condition on it. Or they can get stuck in that people pleaser phase. Sorry, I got tickled. Unconditional love. I'll always love you. I may be totally pissed at what you've done. I may not like at all what you've done. I may hate what you've done. I may hate what you're doing. But I will always love you because you're separating the behavior from the person. It's interesting that this is the a psychological part of this that is very interesting, is that we come into the world as our true self. These little beings. And you think about a little baby, and they expect all their needs to be met. That's why they cry. As they get older, they have these little temper tantrums because they just expect these needs to be taken care of. But think about babies in little orphanages. When my son was young, it was in Romania, and the baby stopped crying because they stopped expecting their needs to be met. There was no point. So they were already starting to lose their true self. But also, what happens is, so that very first stage of development as the baby is, they're like a little sociopath, like narcissist, expecting all their needs to be met, and they're using every little trick that they can get to get us to do it, and we're doing it. But then as they move along, and we're going to cover this more in the next stages, excuse me, they start to learn that they'll get more what they want if they start pleasing others. And that's where they start to push down their true self. So that's when a false self is starting to be created, because they're starting to deny what is true for them. Because what happens is the fear of losing another's love and approval can be so strong that they can lose track of their true selves. And we don't want our children to lose track of their true selves. We want to create an environment for the family to support all family members so that they continuously unfold into their true selves. A common way of getting children to conform used to be of shaming, and that would bring guilt, and that would erode trust. So I'm hoping you don't have any questions. Oh, you lived in Romania for 34 years. You remember the babies in the orphanages? Oof. When my son, when he's 33, and when he was a baby, and I thought, I love him so much, and if anything were to ever to happen to him, I'd want to die. Oh, you did volunteering there, and I thought, oh, well, I went, I don't want to, it would be a terrible thing to die. So I thought, if anything were to ever happen to my daughter, I would hop on a plane and I would fly to Romania, and I would go to the orphanages and I would cuddle those babies. Because it broke my heart thinking about babies laying in cribs, no longer crying. Anyway, that was a little off topic. How are we doing for time? We're doing okay, 2:03, we're doing pretty good. So I've got respecting personal boundaries. The best way to teach this is to set a good example by showing respect to everyone's personal boundaries, including the children. A lot of people don't show respect to their children's personal boundaries. They don't think children are entitled to personal boundaries. Think about that. Do you show respect to your children's personal boundaries? Have you ever thought about respecting children's personal boundaries? I hadn't even thought about it until I took this original course. Excuse me. And I thought, well, I probably don't. Because you sort of just think of them as a little extension of you, as a little mini me. And it's interesting that there seems to be a direct relationship between authoritarian parenting, which is frequently disrespectful of personal boundaries, and authoritative parenting, which regards the ideas that everyone, including children, have personal boundaries. I always find that so interesting that there's authoritarian and authoritative. And those two words could be so easily confused with one another. And yet they're such different concepts. One's here, one's there. And that's what I'm trying to get you guys to do, is to make that shift, because making that shift creates an environment for your children to thrive. And I think that's what we all want as parents, is we want to make our children thrive. We want to give them all the advantages that we didn't have. We want them to have excellent communication skills, which we cover in lesson 4. We want them to have positive self-esteem, which we cover in lesson 3. We want them to have good conflict resolution skills, good problem-solving skills. We want them to be true to themselves. We want them to know how to go after what they want without hurting others, and we want them to develop compassion and respect personal boundaries. Would that not make us pretty freaking successful parents? Yes? No? Would that not be a success? Wouldn't you feel like a success as a parent? So just recognizing that children have personal boundaries that need to be respected is really important. And normally with this, with a long weekend coming up like this, where there would be family gatherings, is a lot of families would be saying, oh, go give grandma a hug or a kiss, or go give Auntie Doreen a hug or a kiss, or that. And the child would be saying, oh, I don't want to, I don't want to. That's not respecting their personal boundary. We have to remember, it's their body, and they can hug, kiss whoever they want, and not hug and kiss whoever they want. It's actually that push to tell them to do that that teaches them not to respect the signals that they get about what is good for them, and leaves them vulnerable to abuse. Because if we're teaching them not to listen, to their internal readings, then we leave them vulnerable. Does that make sense? Come on, somebody. Put in the chat box, yes, no,
Doesn't make sense. I feel like I'm here all by myself. Oh, a little low on the self-esteem right there. So, excuse me. So we're going to end today with, there's like, to make the change, there's 4 stages of the cycle of change. Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying it makes sense. I love some little bit of feedback. It's lonely here. So breakdown. So this is the stages for you to shift for your parenting style. So the breakdown is, take the situation of waking up with a sniffle and low energy. And we don't feel well. We are getting sick. Or our car is limping along and needs some maintenance. We avoid having the necessary maintenance done because of the expense. We realize that we need to change to accommodate new circumstances, but we resist. We hope the problem will go away. How many have been there? In relationships, we frequently go through power struggles to maintain the status quo, or to try to make something fit that does not fit anymore. So things are starting to break down. Now the breakup, this is the stage where something gives. There is no denying that there's a problem. We have no choice but to deal with the situation. This can be a fearful, stressful place. Breakout. Here we have come to the resolution about our problem. We may have to surrender the old way of thinking and move into acceptance. One door closes and others are now open to us. We wouldn't go back to previous conditions if we could. In this stage, we are motivated by curiosity and a realization that things can get better if we choose well. And breakthrough, with an open mind, all sorts of possibilities come flooding through. This is the time of aha, eureka. Soon we'll settle into this stage and become creatures of these habits, and the cycle will start anew. So that's all the material for lesson 1. Next week, lesson 2 is on understanding the source of the behavior, how thoughts and feelings affect behavior, how feelings work, teaching children to develop compassion, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, teaching responsibility, and 6 steps to problem solving. So I'll just take a few minutes now. And does anybody have any questions? Any questions? Do you have any questions on this material? Same time next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I really love that material too. It's I found I learned so much from it. Will you be joining us? Oh, you can't hear me. Excellent. 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 Well, I'm really looking forward to sharing this information with you. Like I say, it really helped me. I mean, I found I grew as a person, and the more I got so much peace from it. And when I had more peace, I was so much better a parent. Okay, some of you are working. Okay, and there will be recordings down the road available. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work because they're a little bit big, but I definitely will want to move forward with that. So, oh, thank you very much for saying thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So oh, okay, hang on here. I'm not seeing the whole, okay, there it is. Okay, what do we got here? Okay. I also have a Facebook page, Positive Proactive Parenting. If you guys are, yes, I'm going to be doing this for 8 weeks. On Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I'm going to be doing this. So hopefully you'll join us. Oh yeah, okay, email. Okay, so you want the webinar link. Webinar link. I'm just curious. How did you guys find out? Oh, okay. About the course? Okay. Okay. Okay, my email is Patricia at positiveproactiveparenting.com. Okay, excellent. I've actually done this course. I used to do group live classes, and then I got busy with my other business, and then I started doing a lot of one-on-ones for people going through divorce, and I would have counselors, lawyers, parenting coordinators referring people. Then I mean, one-on-one, I was charging $1,200 and then $1,500, but we were taking the material and applying it to their particular situations. So also, if there's no more questions, then, and if that's it for questions. Oh, sorry, you had a hard time connecting. Excellent. Well, that's what I was hoping, that I know some of the teachers. I actually thought about sending this out to, I've got a lot of contacts with the schools because of Orange Shirt Day, and a lot of schools buy the official Orange Shirt Day from our website. And I thought, oh, I don't know if they're, you know, I mean, they joined my list for Orange Shirt Day. I don't know if they want parenting class. Thank you very much for saying it's very informative. Thank you. Yes, I like I say, this I transformed, and I've had so many parents say it's transformed their life. Thank you. Yes, I think so. A lot more people registered than showed up, so So hopefully it'll be interesting to see. Thank you, thank you. I hope so. It's, you know, I remember I've had a couple of dads and they said, it's just common sense, but nobody had said it to them that way before. Well, if that's it, there's no more questions. I am going to end this and I will see you guys next Wednesday. Now, it will, I'm not sure, you may have to register again. So go to the Positive Proactive Parenting page on Facebook, and the link for lesson 2 will be there. Will that help? Go to Positive Proactive Parenting. I should have set it up before this, and then I could have put it here. I will do that before next week for lesson 3. Yes.